gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 377. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
I didn't know definitively if you were starting yet, so I had muted myself for a second to blow my nose, and I just barely unmuted in time to woo. I was very proud of myself.
I would have been weirded out if it wasn't there.
Right?
Like, Saturn, are you going to do the thing? Or no. We do have housekeeping.
Yeah.
Which first of all, I had strep throat for 5 days.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It was the worst strep throat I've had in such a long time. Ugh. It hurt so bad, and I had such bad fever. Oh my God.
Oof.
And so I went in and got the old penicillin shot,
right.
Which is that I go in and they're like, "Well, do you want the shot or the pills?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess give me the shot because then I just get it once and I'm done, right?" And they go, "Yeah, the shot usually works better too." And I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "Most people just don't want the shot." And they're like talking shit about people that don't want the shot. Do you know why they don't want the shot, Saturn?
Because it's enormous.
Because it's a deep intramuscular, wide bore, extra long needle, and they have to inject you for like 2 solid minutes because the liquid is so viscous.
That sounds painful.
And of course, like a minute and a half into the shot, I'm like, I know why people don't want it now. This is why.
Yeah. But did it work?
Suffice it to say, it seemed to. I got better about 3 days later.
Good.
My throat's still a little tender,
right?
You know, but I'm
that'll happen
alive.
After 5 days of being sick.
And so so if I'm extra flimmy or whatever on the show, I've been sick. But also that means that the first time I'm looking at the notes is right now. So listener, I'm exploring this topic with you. Because Saturn was kind enough to get the shows knocked out for me because I not only was sick, I had 2 doctor visits and a family emergency, and I just had so much shit happening this week that it wasn't happening.
It happens.
It wasn't happening. So, that's the housekeeping. My wife got it too. My kid didn't. Miraculously did not get strep throat.
Sometimes kids are invincible, and sometimes they are the opposite of that.
Yeah, and sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they are vincible.
Which still sounds pretty good. It's a good word, good strong word. I am vincible. Like that sounds like something you want to be.
No, it's just when you turn into Vince.
But Mom, I woke up today and I turned into Vince Vaughn.
I was thinking Vince the ShamWow guy.
Either way, you'd be vincible, right?
Yeah, very vincible.
As far as games, I'm sure I've mentioned on the show before, when I'm real sick, I can't play games.
No, yeah, you didn't mention that.
Because I create really bad associative memories where, like, if I play a game with a really bad headache or when I'm sick, then every time I play that game,
it comes back.
It comes back.
So, that sucks, but it's so weird.
It is. I've always been like that. Like, I've never, when I'm real sick, all I can do is watch TV. And sometimes if I'm extra sick, I can't even do that. I just have to lay there and just moan. And so, yeah, I didn't play a ton, but when I did kind of start feeling a little bit back on my feet, you know, I reached a point where the fever was gone, the body aches were gone. It just hurt to swallow.
It's time to reach for the Steam Deck.
I got my Steam Deck out and I've been playing the Vampire Survivors.
Nice.
Which, it might be the best game. I think it might actually just be the best game.
It's 100% the best game that retails for less than $5.
Oh, yeah, no question.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, so I put in several hours. Normally I sit down, I play it for 1 or 2 sessions, you know, so that's like 30 to 40 minutes of me just playing a couple characters, then I move on.
Right.
And I sat down and I was like, I think this game has a lot of hidden unlockable stuff. Maybe I'll kind of dig into that and see like what secrets this game has. Right. Holy shit. Holy shit.
And they keep adding more, right?
I don't know what's added or not because I've not, like, I was playing and I was just playing through. I finally beat level 3. And I unlocked level 4 and I'm like, all right, let me unlock level 4. And I'm going through and I'm trying to unlock characters. There's hidden characters you have to put codes in for.
Nice.
And I finally, I run into like a card and it unlocks this like tarot card system to give you different boosts, and
nice.
it's like it's unlocking entire other sub games within the game.
Nice.
And it's just, God, it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's just so fucking jam packed with content.
I'm waiting for somebody to finally like get to the bottom of it and learn that the whole thing was an ARG marketing scheme for a much worse game?
Dark Void situation. Is what we call
Yeah,
that.
right.
What was that DSiWare game they made? It was so fun.
Right.
So I know I've said it before. Just buy Vampire Survivors.
Right.
It's $4.99.
Yeah.
Just buy. The best part is that
It's also on Game Pass, by the way.
yeah, it's on Game Pass. Go play it and also go buy it.
Right.
The dude that made it is literally just like, I don't know, I thought it'd be fun. Like that's the extent.
It's great that all the interviews he's like, I didn't think people would like it, but they did, and that's great.
It's to the point that it's almost like outsider art, you know, like some guy's just like, I don't know, I guess I'll make a game, and everyone's like, oh my god! And obviously he's started like hiring people, like you can tell that there's some actual, you know, some polish coming in. But man, what a wonderful game! What a wonderful success story in gaming!
Right.
It's just so exciting. It's so
not
good.
Like it's the first time that an indie game has taken off like this.
No, absolutely not.
But it's certainly a
well
well-deserved time.
It's the first time that it seems like it was on accident. And it's just funny, you know, you got your Jonathan Blows of the world that are like, gaming is high art, and I'm creating a canvas of pixels.
Right.
And this guy's like, I just thought it'd be cool if it was like Castlevania, but also like a shmup, and then maybe there's stuff, and you hit with a whip.
I don't know, the Five Nights at Freddy's guy, I don't think he expected it to get as big as it did.
Yeah.
He was like, what if Haunted Chuck E. Cheese, and then suddenly it's a movie?
Yeah. Which apparently that guy is retired because he was not a great guy.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
That's what I heard about that.
Fortunately, other people have taken over all that stuff now.
Yeah. Anyway, please play Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
Please play it. Saturn, please play Vampire Survivors.
I have. It's fun.
Play more of it.
I'm also,
you have not played enough.
Well, I'm waiting for them to add the Xbox achievements to the Game Pass version because he says he's working on it.
Oh, is it not Chivos yet?
Yeah, they're not in the Game Pass version. They're only on the Steam version, which I also have the Steam version. I unlocked several of them there. But then I saw it was on Game Pass, and I was like, oh, I really want to get those same achievements, but on Xbox. So I'm trying to wait for that.
I had unlocked Turbo mode a while back, and just the other day I unlocked Hurry mode. Oh. So I can turn on Hurry and Turbo mode.
Does it get silly?
It's so fast. I only play on hurried Turbo mode now. That's the only way that I'll play. And when you unlock a new level, it won't let you do Turbo until you beat it. But it will always let you do Hurry mode. If you have Hurry mode, they don't care. Yeah. So, but yeah, now I'm replaying older levels on Hurry Turbo with like weird character combos and evolving weird weapons and finding cards to put in my tarot. It's just weird shit.
Hurry Turbo is my favorite version of Street Fighter 2.
It's Street Fighter 2 Hurry Turbo Edition. Hurry! But that's it. I just played just gobs of Vampire Survivors, and it's still so good.
I finished Horizon Forbidden West after we finished recording our last episode, like minutes afterwards.
Solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that's about right. 7 or 8, somewhere in there. It was good. It was fun. And the thing is, like, while I was playing it, it was like the first game. I had no draw to go back to it whenever I'd set it down. It was one of those games where I only kept going back to it because I couldn't think of anything else to play. The second game was one of the games where I actually thought about going back to it whenever I wasn't playing it. So clearly they had improved something. But it's fine. It was fun. And then I also picked up Agilos. I don't know how to pronounce it.
How is that? That looks like kind of like a... like a Wonder Boy like, I guess would be the correct phrasing.
It's like Wonder Boy mixed with Zelda 2 is what I'm getting from it.
Oh man, that sounds fun.
It is. It's fun and it's well done or well animated. The music is nice. The controls feel responsive. It feels very Wonder Boy-y as far as the controls go. I'm not super deep in it yet because everything came out, but I am chipping away at it, and it is fun. And so far, I recommend it just because it's fun and it seems good. But
there's like a small list of these like NES style games. There's Cathedral, which is like a Wizards and Warriors like. Mm-hmm. And there's the two Always game, Always Awakening and Always Legacy. And there's that other one I sent you. Oh God, what was it?
I don't remember which one it was, but yeah,
there's like this. I have this small handful of these like NES likes that I'm like keep wanting to get around to
Right.
and then don't, and Aglos is in there. It's
Yeah.
one of them.
I picked it up because it was on sale on Xbox for like $3, and I was
yeah.
like, well, I
There you
can't
go.
really not spend $3.
Yeah,
and then,
that's basically free.
yeah,
$3.50 free.
yeah, and so since I had just finished Horizon and the games that I was looking forward to hadn't come out yet, I was giving that a shot, and it's good, and I'm going to go back to it because I enjoyed it. And then Diofield Chronicle came out.
What the fuck is this game?
It is a game.
Explain this game to me, Saturn.
Well, it comes on a disc, and you put the disc in your console, and then it
I'm
installs
lost.
it. Okay, shit.
I don't understand.
All right, let me start over. Do you know what a computer is?
No. Is it like an iPad?
It's like an iPad.
Okay.
So it feels like to me, if somebody was told to make some sort of mix between Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre and Diablo, but they hadn't played either of them. They only watched footage of both of them.
All right. It's
And-
not sounding great, man.
No, it's actually surprisingly fun. Like it's
All right.
despite the fact that it feels like a bunch of things that might not go together great and don't look or feel like they're put together right, the actual execution is good. Like it comes together well. Like it almost feels like an MMO take on a Tactics Ogre style turn-based strategy, only it's in real time.
Yeah.
And then you get to these story segments where it feels like they told somebody to make a Game of Thrones style story, but that person had only ever seen or read manga in their life. That's the only experience of fiction that they have. That's their only frame of reference.
So it's an action RPG.
It is a action strategy game.
Okay.
It is a real-time strategy with RPG elements. That's how I would describe it.
All right.
Yeah.
And they want $60 for this.
I believe it is currently 60. I don't know that I'm ready to recommend it for 60,
Yeah.
but it is neat, and I'm glad that they are exploring new IPs. That's my favorite part. Is
Yes.
I get fatigue of sequels all the time.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it is nice.
Totally.
And when we first saw the trailer of it, I thought it was Ogre Battle. I thought they were making a new Ogre Battle finally.
Yeah.
Because it has a very, very similar art style to Ogre Battle until you see its 3D art. Then it looks like somebody used some generic Unreal Engine assets.
That doesn't sound promising.
Now that part's not great, but the game itself is fine. It plays well.
It came out and I was looking at it. I was like, this looks cool. But then the reviews were immediately mixed and they remain mixed on Steam.
I believe it has a demo on every platform.
Does it?
Yeah. So if nothing else, try the demo.
I see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is a weird take on, because I thought it was going to be turn-based strategy based on the trailers, and it is more real-time than it is turn-based, but it also has a bunch of cooldowns like in an MMO or something. So it's weird. I'm not ready to say that I fully recommend it yet, but I am willing to say that it is worth trying the demo.
The demo. Yeah.
Because it is an
Everything looks
interesting idea, at least.
I don't know if it's the perspective or what, but everything looks very toy-like. It looks very
can see
much
that.
like little tabletop miniatures. Even like the
Oh, yeah.
cutscenes, like when they're zoomed in on them, they look very like toyetic.
Well, when you start a mission, you're at your base and you're talking to the commander and everything, and they are showing you on this big table with their little military figures what the strategy is and where they're going to be going. And then when it starts the actual mission, it just zooms in on that table and there's the mission. And so I think that toy-like aesthetic is almost intentional. That's my thought anyway.
Saturn, did you get the $74.99 digital deluxe edition?
I did not. I got it on a disc.
It comes with a ring and a spear
Yeah,
and the game?
Yeah, I got the disc in the mail because I had some credit.
I love the phrase digital art book.
Yeah, I hate that.
Digital, you mean you JPEGs? You're going to give me some JPEGs that you already had lying around?
JPEGs.
That you already had lying around?
Yeah.
Hey, you want some JPEGs with that?
But we
It's
zipped 'em up.
$25.
We put them in a PDF for you.
We zipped them up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Got
man.
some zipped up JPEGs.
You get some JPEGs, you get the soundtrack. So you get the sound files that you already own.
Right.
And some JPEGs.
You get the JPEGs that they were going to throw away, and then you get some sound files that they extracted from the game for you.
Perfect. I'm so excited. The game was Astalon.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
that
yeah.
weird NES
That other
looking
one, yeah.
game that I found the other day. Let's do the news.
Okay.
First up, potential alpha or pre-alpha build of Grand Theft Auto 6 has been leaked.
Mm-hmm.
Half the internet lost their mind over how early it looked, and the other half lost their mind because they don't understand how video game development works.
Well, they lost their mind at those first group of people because they didn't.
Oh, right, for
understand.
not understanding. Look, everyone's. I already saw news articles that are like, it looks like shit, and I'm like, it's an in development game.
Right, it's
you
a pre-alpha.
fucking morons.
However, the leaker has allegedly the alleged leaker has been arrested now in the UK.
Well, because they bragged about it on YouTube, didn't they?
They bragged about
My
it somewhere.
God.
I don't remember if it was YouTube or TikTok or whatever, but they have been arrested in the UK. But they say they already sold the source code to GTA 5 to someone else. So someone else may already have that.
You know, on the one hand, I don't fucking care because it's Rockstar.
Right, yeah, they got plenty of money.
And they've just been the shittest shitheads with GTA 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still angry. To the point, like, I have no intention of buying GTA 6.
Right.
Like, unless they fired everyone at the company and hired new people, why would I buy it? It was a game that I bought that I loved, and then they actively made it worse, and then eventually actively made it hostile toward me.
Yeah.
To the point that, like, I can't even play the damn thing anymore.
What if they sold the franchise to Konami and let Konami finish it?
Oh, yeah. Well, first it'd be a series of skateboards. But then also, like, it sucks to have your whole entire fucking game leaked. But also, like, they should have been. I mean, GTA 5 came out what? Like the year Skyrim came out? How old is this game?
I think it's 10 years old this year. I want to say it's 10 years old.
The next one, man. Quit milking microtransactions and make the damn game.
Right.
I get it. You're making billions on microtransactions. Why would you make shit?
Oh, it's 10 years old next year. My bad. And you know, keep in mind, Grand Theft Auto 5 was released on the Xbox 360.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
that makes it feel so ancient now. And they're still milking it.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Or at least make GTA 4 available somewhere, anywhere, please. I like that one. It's fun.
Right.
Konami held a contest to allow indie developers to revive old Konami franchises, because that's how businesses work. The 5 winners included Star Soldier, Parodius, Twinbee, Pooyan, and Maze of Gallius, which will be headed by the dev behind La Mulana, and I fucking love La Mulana.
And La Mulana itself was supposedly a love letter to Maze of Gallius, which I haven't played. There is a fan translation of it out there, but I haven't personally played it, but I have heard good things. So I am excited to see what he does with that IP. I'm also way more excited to find out about new Star Soldier, Parodius, and Twinbee games. That is
absolutely
exciting to me. And also,
and you get to say Pooyan. You know, on the one hand, like, I want to make fun of Konami for doing it this way, but also, like, at least they're letting people who care take over franchises and make stuff with their, you know, like, good on them for that.
Yeah, instead of just turning them into shitty mobile apps that try to fleece you out of money.
And La Mulana is just so damn good that I cannot wait for whatever that person makes.
Right.
It's just so I played that on Wii, and it was just awesome.
Did you play the sequel?
I never did. I almost picked it up the other day because it was on sale. But Mulana is kind of one of those games that you sort of got to be in that kind of mood for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to, like, tear your hair out.
Yeah, that was my issue. That's why I don't have hair now, is because I played the first one. And,
there you go.
And it was so hard.
It is some extremely intense, real critical thinking puzzle solving. And it can be pretty opaque. And every now and then I'll get in that mood where I want that.
Right.
You know, I want to just smash my face against something like Dark Souls or Dwarf Fortress or whatever for a couple weeks.
Right.
But I wasn't feeling it, so I did not pick it up, so I haven't played it yet. Microsoft has changed Xbox DRM to allow most Xbox One and Series X games to play directly from a disc without the need for an internet connection.
Good.
Thank God.
They should have done that in the first place. I'm glad they eventually got there, but it should have been this way the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
And this
Thank
includes
goodness.
the smart delivery games. Some people have tested it, and in the past, if you tried to run a smart delivery game on a Series X, it would say this game needs to go online first because only the Xbox One version was on the disc, and it would refuse to run the Xbox One version if there was a Series X version available.
Right.
And now, with this new update, if you're offline, there's no internet connection, it'll just install and run the Xbox One version. It'll just ignore that the newer version exists until you get online.
Yeah. Sony rumored to be launching a new PS5 with a detachable disc drive.
Yeah. I think this is a cost-cutting measure. That's my thought. That's my theory.
I mean, they already have one without a fucking disc drive.
Right. Well, see, that's my thing. I think they want to make only one model of PS5 going forward and just have the optional disc drive.
Oh no, you think they're ditching the drive?
Yeah, that's my thought. Is that this is their attempt to cut the cost in PS5 development by only having one SKU, but with a little disc drive they can sell on the side.
You know what they could do? Instead of all this effort, just make more fucking PS5s, Sony.
Yeah,
just make more of them. Just make more.
Well, they're already selling a ludicrous amount, they claim.
I mean, you're literally Sony. You are the electronics company. Yeah. This is what you have been doing for decades. Right. Literally all you've done for decades is make and produce and distribute consumer electronics. How do you not know how to do this?
Well, at least it is getting easier to find than it has been. Like, it is not impossible now. It's still not easy, but it's not impossible now.
Oh my God, just fucking make them. Also, I think this is going to go over like a lead balloon. I think that people that want a disc drive very much want it built in.
Yeah.
And I think people that don't want it don't want to pay the extra.
Right.
So presumably they would sell it separately, I guess.
Yeah, either that or they might still sell it as two retail SKUs, just one with it bundled and one with it not.
One without, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how well this is going to go over.
It seems, it feels very HD DVD of them.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of how I'm getting it too.
Take-Two announces a security breach that could affect users with 2K Games accounts. So that sucks.
Yeah. Thanks.
That sucks. You done did it now.
We also know they had a security breach because the source code to GTA 5 was leaked. So
yeah, this is true.
Clearly, Take-Two's admin password was 12345.
Is that not secure? Should they make it 6?
Yeah, they should have had a 6 at the end.
I just think of that scene from Spaceballs.
Yeah. Same numbers on my luggage.
Atari's new Atari 2600 carts, sold under the Atari XP label, have finally shipped to customers 9 months after pre-orders began. But the PCBs were mounted backward, so they won't play. Did they not test these in an Atari before they fucking mailed them?
And their website tells you how you should get a heat gun to remove the label from the front of your new cartridge so that you can get to the screw to open it up, flip the PCB around, and then seal it again and put your sticker back on.
What the fuck?
Or you can mail it back to them.
Oh my God, Atari.
Yeah. I think LRG was helping them produce stuff. I don't know if the LRG made these or not, though.
Yeah, I would hope not. If nothing else, LRG at least seems to know which direction to put things together. I'll give them that much.
Right.
NVIDIA announces new RTX 4090 will cost $1,599, and that falling GPU prices are, quote, a story of the past.
As is my business for NVIDIA. Is a story of the past.
They're not. The only thing that excites me about the 4090 is that maybe I can get a 3000 series for cheap now. Like that'd be nice.
No, you don't understand.
You don't think so?
It's a story of the past, Justin.
Oh, okay. I see. I can't. NVIDIA is so fucking tone deaf lately that I don't even know what the hell they're doing, man. Just how. This is like Sony level tone deafness of like, just get a second job to buy a PS3. Right. Like, why don't you just get a second job?
I believe we just call that Phil Harrison level tone deafness.
Is that what it is?
Because he was equally tone deaf with the whole, oh, we have an Xbox for people who don't have a high-speed internet connection. It's the Xbox 360.
Right. It almost just seems like corpos are tone deaf jackasses. But that, I mean...
Well, those were both Phil Harrison, though. The PS3 one, the Xbox One. He's just got a great track record.
Square Enix has delayed the PSP ROM of Valkyrie Profile Lilith for PS4 and PS5 less than a week before the scheduled release. Why?
It's a lot of work to put a ROM in an emulator, Justin.
It can run it fine.
Now, look, nobody has ever discovered PSP emulation before. This is all new to them. They don't know what they're doing yet.
So it's basically going to miss the PS5 launch of Valkyrie Profile Elysium.
Yeah. It's so Valkyrie Elysium came out on PS4 and PS5 today, as of the time we're recording this. And
on PC for a month, so I'm still upset about it.
More than a month. It'll be mid to late November is when it comes out on PC. Which is also when they expect the PSP ROM to show up.
Not on Steam, though. So
correct. It'll only be on PS4 and PS5. Though they said it may be December before they get the ROM ready.
Who's working on it? Me? Like, who's...
They keep calling you and you're not answering, Justin.
I'm just busy. And finally, Retro City Rampage DX and Shakedown Hawaii are getting physical releases on the PS3.
Yeah, that's
so cool.
Huh. I'm glad they're getting physical releases because they're both good games. They deserve it. However,
I
feel like it's a little past the window for PS3.
Okay, are you telling me people want to play that old blocky shit? Is that what you're telling me?
Who knew? Speaking of old blocky shit.
Yeah, that brings us to the topic at hand. This week we're talking old blocky shit.
Yeah.
We're talking Sega Genesis 101.
Yeah.
Which, unless you lived in the town that I lived in, and had no idea about the Genesis, then this will help you, kind of get up to speed on where the Genesis is now and how to get into it and
I still have no idea how you managed to live in a place where the Genesis didn't exist. Like, it was so huge for like 5 years there.
But which 5 years?
Like, I would say 90 to 95, give or take.
So 95, I was 7. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily too young for that kind of thing.
Right.
But also...
I was definitely very into video games by the time I was 7.
I mean, I was too. RNES.
Yeah.
Like, I played the shit out of it. I don't know. I don't know how it ended up happening.
Right.
But I just didn't, I didn't.
You lived in a bubble. You lived in this 30 square mile bubble where the Sega was not permitted.
I mean, we only had the one video store.
Right.
We only ever went to the one video store, and they didn't really have. It was Nintendo. It was a Nintendo store. They just had Nintendo stuff. I feel like they maybe had a Genesis rack, but I don't ever remember it being prominent enough that I was like, well, hold on a minute. What is this thing?
Yeah, our video store briefly put the Genesis stuff in front of the NES and Super NES stuff just because of how well it was doing.
Yeah. I suspect none of it was doing that great in that video store because we were just a very small town. So they just kept what they had and then didn't go crazy on Sega stuff.
Which is fair.
Anyway, as a note, we do live in North America.
True.
So we're going to be calling it the Genesis and talking about North American vectors through which you might experience the Genesis. But we do also want to acknowledge that the rest of the world calls it the Mega Drive, which is a superior and cooler name. But here it's the Genesis.
Yeah.
And so we will refer to it as such. Pablo, if you could just edit together a UK version of the show where you dub over every time we say Genesis with the word Mega Drive, and then we'll just distribute that separately.
Or if we can't bother you to say Mega Drive over and over again, if you can contact Phil Collins and ask him to say Mega Drive.
Just have him say it.
Yeah.
Repeatedly. Release info. The Sega Genesis came out in Japan October 29th, 1988. North America October 14th, 1989. Europe, Australia, and Brazil on September 1st, 1990. It just feels so early. It feels so early.
Well, that's when I remember it showing up. 88,
that tracks.
That's it.
My first Genesis, I think I've told this story on the air before. I was 13. Right. And so it would have been turn of the millennium, which is a phrase that people used back then, I swear.
They still do,
me.
Actually. They still...
you don't hear turn of the millennium a lot anymore. It's less common.
How else would they refer to it?
You know, the year 2000.
Them pre-9/11 eras.
And my uncle had gotten one. I know growing up, we had gone to a cabin and there was one. It's like I'd been exposed to it. And the only Genesis I had, I ended up getting for free. I've still never to this day bought a Genesis.
I thought you were about to say you'd still never played it since you had it.
Still never played the Genesis. You know, so yeah. No, I've still never bought a Genesis. They've all been given to me, found in a big pile of junk that someone said, hey, do you want this? And even Genesis games, I've only actually purchased, I think, 4 or 5 in my life. Even stuff like Game Gear. I had a sizable Game Gear collection not long ago, and it was also given to me.
Well, that's how Game Gears work. You don't buy Game Gears. They are given to you, and then they start to reproduce until you have too many Game Gears, and then you try desperately to get rid of them, and then you still find them in your home every now and then.
Because the Genesis was we talked about it a little bit on our collector's episode recently, was so dirt cheap.
Yep.
Extremely dirt cheap, and the majority of the games were dirt cheap, even like first party stuff, your Sonics and whatnot, that people were just giving the shit away. They were just like, do you want it? I don't even want to drive to the store and get the $5 for it. Like, do you want to have this? And so all of mine were just kind of handed to me.
That's fair.
You know, the Dreamcast was the first Sega console I remember anyone being like, I'm stoked on this. This is exciting. My brother got one. It was a launch event. The Genesis was always just like, oh, that other thing that people give away because they don't want it.
That's
like, that's what it was to me.
I know plenty of people who lived through that era that somehow don't remember the Dreamcast existing, but they definitely remember the Genesis.
No, my brother was way on the Dreamcast when it came out, and so that was an event in our house.
Yeah.
But that was the first Sega console that wasn't just like, oh, did
Also,
someone give you that? Like, you didn't buy it. Surely someone at some point used to buy these in the 80s or something. People don't buy them now. You just get them given to you, you know?
Now, we definitely got our Genesis. We didn't get it super early. But, you know, it was, I definitely heard about it almost immediately just because of, you know, the arguments on playgrounds, you know, Nintendo v. Sega. I do remember playing some at friend's house around the time of the Super NES release, probably just before, but we didn't own one until late 92 because Sega had been aggressively dropping prices. I want to say it was $100 for the system, and it came with Sonic 1 and 2.
Yeah.
If it wasn't 100, it might have been 150, but either way, it was pretty cheap and came with 2 Sonic games, which is a thing. So that was enough to push us over to go ahead and give it a try, and it was usually my second choice just because I was more familiar with the Super NES controller when I was renting games.
Right.
But there was tons of games that were exclusive to the system that I rented and played over the years, and of course have acquired. So I am a fan.
Yeah, I've become a fan.
That's good.
You know, as time has rolled, I really enjoy the Genesis now. Honestly,
30 years later.
30 years later. Let's talk about the kind of hardware versus emulation argument for a little bit, because the Genesis in particular, I think there is an argument to be had.
Yeah, because you know, when we do these 101 episodes, we often will end up just saying, well, you could just emulate it. So if you're wanting to experience it, why bother with the hardware? But this is one of those where there is a actual conversation to be had, just because despite the fact that emulation is very readily available, the hardware is kind of readily available too. And it's not too expensive.
Yes. Let's start with emulation. I will say Genesis Plus, GX, whatever the current version is a fantastic emulator.
Absolutely.
Very good, very robust, lots of options, widescreen hacks.
Yep.
It is the Genesis is very, very well emulated.
Well, it's been pretty well emulated since as far back as the late 90s.
True.
So the fact that that quality has continued to improve for almost 25 plus years now. It makes sense that we are where we are now.
Yeah, and also emulated Genesis stuff is everywhere.
Yes.
I mean the Genesis Mini 2 is coming out soon,
Yep.
and granted, it's $120,
True.
but it's got what 75 games on it,
I don't remember exactly how many games it has
something
on
like
it,
that.
but it's got
and,
a
and
bunch.
if it's anything like the previous Genesis Mini, then it will be very easy to hack.
Well, hopefully it is. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it'll be as readily available as the first one. But the first one is still out there. You don't have to look too terribly hard to find it.
Is it still like relatively affordable?
I believe
Pardon me.
so.
The Genesis Mini 2 is 50 classic titles. And then you've got, I mean, there's all the collections. There's the Genesis Classics collection, which is on every platform that includes a huge amount of playable Genesis games. Right. I will say it does seem like the Genesis Mini 2 has kind of a slightly more eclectic lineup.
I agree.
There is some kind of odder stuff in here, you know.
Well, I think it's because they wanted to include some Sega CD stuff that you ended up with some more questionable choices.
Yeah, I think also, questionable is probably the correct.
Right, and also they did, front load that first one with so many of the most popular titles. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the Megaton hits are there on the first one, barring there's only a couple games that I was really like, yeah, I kind of wish this was on here, and I hacked it and I put them on there, so it's fine. So Genesis emulation, whether legal or questionably legal, is very readily available, very well done.
Absolutely.
Available at retail and on your local Pirate Bay.
Right.
It's
or on your Switch online.
Yeah, it's very well done and it's quite prolific.
Yeah.
To the point that despite how cheap the original hardware still is, which is why there is an argument to be made here, is the original hardware is still so dirt cheap. Yeah. Like, how much is a Genesis console going for these days? Like, what?
I had priced it earlier. I want to say it was less than 50.
Yeah, like $50.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
It's hard because even as cheap as it is, Genesis games are so prolific in so many other places that I still kind of would recommend emulation.
Right. And it really depends on what experience you're after, obviously.
True.
So if you're just wanting to play Flicky and you want to play it on your old TV, then go pick up a Genesis and a copy of Flicky.
Good old Flicky.
Yeah. But if you're, wanting to experience 1,000 Genesis games in every possible way and then play fan translations and fan mods and widescreen hacks and everything, then go with emulation. It's out there and it's good.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, all that said, if you want to emulate the Genesis, just emulate.
Right.
It's
out there.
Great. But if you do want to do hardware, let's talk about the hardware and let's talk about the variants, because I don't know. I know a couple of these. Yeah. But the Genesis was so long-lived and so iterated upon that there's a lot.
Yeah. So first, you got the official Sega published consoles.
Even the idea that in the notes it says first party consoles is so
weird.
So foreign.
Yeah.
This is the Philips PlayStation 5.
So you had the standard Genesis, the original one, which in itself has some hardware revisions, but unless you are a absolute diehard Genesis collector, you're probably not going to notice those differences. They're mostly in what chip they used for the sound, and so it can sound a little different. But if you're not that hardcore of a collector, you got the first Genesis, which is a little bit wider, has a front headphone port. The AV multi-out port on the back only does mono sound. So if you want to do stereo sound, you have to use that front headphone port, which can be awkward, but plenty of cables are available now that have a little breakaway that plugs into that front port so that you can do stereo sound.
Yeah.
Then you have the Genesis 2, which is closer to being a square in shape, and it has stereo sound from that multi-out port, but some diehard Genesis fans say that its sound chip isn't quite as good as the one in the original.
The Genesis 2 is the one that I've had 2 or 3 of.
Yeah.
It seems to be the most prolific, but I don't know that.
I don't know if it's the most prolific. I would say it's the one that is held up the best as far as hardware-wise, because there was a lot more hardware failure that I noticed with Genesises than other consoles of its time.
Yeah.
And
Now,
the first model especially had some issues.
all the ones I've ever owned have broken or had issues or had problems, especially with the ports on the back.
Yeah. That
Of
was
needing to wiggle cords or wrap the cord around the Genesis.
That was my issue with all of my Genesis 1s. My first Genesis 2 had an issue with the controller port, but my current one has been fantastic since the day I've had it.
Yeah. So just be aware that there are some issues with the Genesis.
Right.
I assume a lot of it is just because these things were just mass produced all to hell.
Right.
They produced an insane amount of them, indicated by our experience with how many there were, and the experience with how available and still affordable they are.
Exactly.
So just be aware. There's, you might go through one or two,
Right.
If you're just like thrifting for one,
Right. But if you want to get weird, you can go past the Genesis 1 and 2 and look at the other options. So the CDX was a Genesis with a built-in Sega CD that kind of looks like a Discman.
Yes.
And it plugs into your TV and plays Genesis and Sega CD games. And you also have the Nomad, which was a handheld Genesis sold only in North America. It is based on the Mega Jet, which was also a handheld Genesis, but built into planes.
Yeah. Now, the Nomad, I've never used one, but I can't imagine.
Check it out.
I can't imagine it's worth the almost $300 price tag it demands.
No. Because not only do you need to recap it, but you will probably want to replace the screen because it's got one of those really early LCDs, so it bleeds color everywhere. And it has like I think the refresh rate on it is 1 frame per second.
Oh boy,
something like that. It might be like 1 frame every 8 seconds. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's not great. So it kind of looks like butt. So a lot of people have put newer LCD mods in there. Plus, it doesn't have a built-in battery pack. You had to buy the battery pack separately when it came out.
Yeah,
so
that sucks.
If you really wanted it to be handheld, not plugged into a wall, you had to have the battery pack.
Which, granted, the battery pack would buy you, what, an hour and a half?
I think so, and I think it was 6C batteries, if I remember right.
I mean, it's Steam Deck level battery.
Yeah,
like, just don't expect much from it.
But no, it is a neat little curio. If I had to pay for mine, I don't know that I would have it. But it's a neat thing to have.
And surely there's people out there modding and recapping, and if it's something you really want, that's one that I would highly recommend. Get it already modded and fixed up, because
or
it's a
find
project.
Someone who will do it
otherwise.
beforehand.
Yeah, otherwise you're looking at a project.
Yes. And then we go into the licensed or third-party consoles. First, we have the Genesis 3, which is the sequel to the Genesis 1 and 2. You could tell because it has the number 3 on the front of it, unlike the Genesis 1 and 2 that had no number.
This one I saw sold in Bed Bath & Beyond in the 2000s.
Yeah, probably for another 10 years.
I mean...
It was first released in 98, and it was still on shelves for at least 5 or 6 years.
I remember looking at it and being like, there's no fucking way this is a legit Sega product. And I'll be damned. It was.
Well, it was a licensed Sega product.
Right, but it's an officially licensed Sega product.
And it came in an aqua blue box.
Yep.
For some reason. Because, that's the color you think of when you think Genesis, is that weird, like...
aqua blue.
Yeah. But it is teeny tiny. It doesn't connect to any expansion devices, which we'll get to in a minute. So it's I don't recommend it. It does support the same video output as Genesis 2, which is great, but just get a Genesis 2. It's more worth your time.
Yeah.
Or you can go with the XI, which was called the Wonder Mega in Japan.
How affordable are XIs these
probably
days?
not.
Oh, here it is. $250 loose. On the low end.
So I stared at one of these in a pawn shop for years before somebody bought it. Anyway, so it is made by JVC or Victor in Japan, and it is just a Genesis with a built-in Sega CD, much like the CDX, but larger.
Yeah.
And it has more advertised karaoke features, which is important.
Oh, of course.
And then you have the Laser Active, which if you know what a Laser Active is, you know that you already want one, so it doesn't matter what I say. but it's a Laserdisc player that has little expansion packs that can play either Genesis or TurboGrafx games. And you're going to be
a beast.
You're going to be paying close to $1,000 if you really want to get that one set up. So
now, I'll
don't
say
do
this. If you're after the Genesis with the built-in Sega CD drive, the CDX is twice the cost of the XI.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So CDX, you're looking loose, 500 low.
Yeah.
On the low end.
And CDXs have capacitor issues, and there were very few made, so they're not super, super common to find. Then you also have the IBM Terra drive, which didn't come out over here. That was a Japan exclusive. Also the Amstrad Mega PC in Europe, which were just IBM compatible computers with a built-in Genesis.
Excellent.
I don't know how much they cost. I assume infinity dollars.
Oh, most likely.
Yeah,
most likely.
And then finally you have the various at-games Genesis models that came out up to about 5 years ago. I was still seeing them. And they will play Genesis cartridges through composite output only. They look like garbage. They sound like garbage. They play like garbage, but they are technically things that you can purchase.
Just buy a Genesis at
Yes,
that point. Just
definitely.
buy a Genesis.
Right.
So I think the general recommendation here is buy a Genesis 2
1 or 2
or 1 is kind of the order.
Yep. 1 or 2, depending on how anal you are about the sound of your system.
Yeah, you've also got FPGA with a Mister or one of the analog systems.
Mega
Analog
SG.
has their Mega SG, which
True.
is I've heard very good things about. I don't know what their availability looks like. Last I checked, they were sold out of everything in perpetuity.
Yeah.
But it's an option.
Right.
Let's talk controllers as we are
We
wont to
fucking
do.
love to talk controllers.
I want to talk about the original Genesis controller.
Yeah.
Because it's the big fucking 3-button batarang looking thing
Yeah.
that is enormous.
It is
It is
big
an
controller.
enormous controller given the amount of buttons on it. And the buttons are fucking enormous.
Yep.
And depressing them it takes like force. It's like chunk chunk. it's like a typewriter key.
Well, it made it feel like it was a more grown-up console, at least to me at that time. It was the one for big, strong hands.
Yeah. But it's the original Genesis controller, to me as a 34-year-old man, is still too big and unwieldy for my hands.
Right.
It's gigantic.
I played
And as
so
a kid,
much on it back then.
as a kid, it is the only Genesis controller I ever saw.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right. Well, up until 94, it was the only, or 93, it was the only Genesis controller.
And so I'm just going to say it. The OG Genesis controller is kind of bad.
Yeah. It's fine for what it is. Better has been made. There's no reason to hunt it down except for nostalgia.
It's kind of bad. It's just kind of bad. It's humongous. I mean, get a 6-button pad.
Yeah. Definitely get a 6-button pad.
If not just for the relatively small number of games that support it, but also because it's nicer in the hand.
I don't even know that I would say relatively small number of games. It's probably about a quarter to a third of the games on the system support the 6-button controller.
Really? Wow, I guess I didn't realize it was that. I never had a 6-button pad for my Genesis, so I guess I never realized that it was.
After the 6-button controller came out, it very quickly became the standard pack-in, and then you started to see most games have at least optional support for it. That said, the 6-button controller is not compatible with all 3-button early games. So there is a button on the 6-button controller called Mode. And if you hold that button while you turn on the console, it will force the console to use it as a 3-button controller, which is supposed to make it work on those games. But I believe there's 1 or 2 that still won't work with it. If I could be mistaken there. That could be just old playground information that got mixed up in my head. But my understanding is you might need a 3-button controller if they're specific very
just
early
for
games.
full compatibility. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think the 6-button pad ergonomically is superior in every possible way.
But which 6-button pad?
I don't know. Enlighten me, Saturn. Because I've only ever had aftermarket these. Like I've got some Retrobit pads, and I've got the M30, and I've got some Saturn pads, which are definitely different. But I don't own any official 6-button Sega Genesis pads. So step me through the variants.
Well, there's at least 3 official OEM 6-button pads. They all have the same model number, and Sega called them all the same thing.
That's not confusing. Good job, Sega. You did it.
Yeah. So the original one had the same layout as we expect, but the mode button was a shoulder button. It was where the R button would be on a Super Nintendo controller. So if you needed to switch into 3-button mode, you have to hold that trigger in during boot. If you got the later variant, it looked nearly identical, but mode was moved to over next to the start button as if it were a select button.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
And then, real late in the system's life, was another 6-button pad that had slightly beefier buttons that had a grip closer to the grip of the original 3-button controller, but more similar to the size and form factor of the 6-button controller. So
that one sounds less desirable.
I have that one as my favorite, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I did not think I would like it when I first got it, and it has become my favorite. I love it. I wish I could tell people what to look for, but it has the same model number as the other ones. So,
yeah,
just look for the one that looks different.
So, like the retro bit controllers right now, I think those are mostly based off the
second model, so far as I understand.
Yeah. And the one coming in the Genesis Mini 2, I believe, is as well.
I believe so.
It looks just like those.
Right. And there may even be other variants that I'm not aware of. Those are the ones I'm immediately aware of, and it's hard to research that because not too many websites have broken down those different 6-button controllers.
Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of good pads for the Genesis.
Sure, absolutely.
Thankfully. There's also no shortage of... There's no shortage of bad pads now that I'm looking at things.
Yeah. Performance and I want to say also innovation both made decent third-party 6-button pads for the Genesis back in the day.
I'm looking at this Honeybee pad that has the rainbow sliders for the turbos across the top.
That's how you know it's good.
And it is definitely a 3-button shape with 6 buttons on it that just does not look nice to hold. But I don't know, who knows? Let's talk accessories. You've got the guns, you got the mice, you've got all the stuff. What is vital to owning a Genesis here?
None of it. Anyway, as far as guns go, you got the Minicer or the Justifier. The Minicer is the more bazooka-y style. The Justifier is the more revolver-y style. That's the one that they brought to Congress to tell you how horrible the Genesis was.
The hot blue gun that they took out and were like, this weapon of destruction!
Exactly.
Fucking neon.
There's also a mouse for the system, much like the Super Nintendo.
Yes.
And 30 games use it, including stuff like Eye of the Beholder and Lemmings 2. However, 17 of them are Sega CD exclusives. So there's only 13 cartridge games that use the mouse.
I'm looking at the mouse and man, it's
ugly.
Fugly.
Oh man,
it's got 3 buttons and the start button is like on the palm rest.
Yeah, for some reason. Also, it's a ball mouse because it's the early 90s, so it's not even laser.
God.
And
I'm also seeing what looks like some type of what is this? The XE1AP analog intelligent controller system.
Oh man, I haven't heard about that in a long time.
Which looks terrible. It looks like it has a throttle on it. It looks like it's for flying games.
I'm guessing either that or it's for hand cramps. I'm not gonna guarantee anything.
Giving them or relieving them.
Yes.
So that's a lot of mouse games.
Yeah. For the console era, that's a ton of mouse games, and
like
also
enough mouse games that I might say it's kind of worth having a mouse around. Like if you're going to go original hardware.
Well, look up what the list is because there's a good chance you may never play any of them, depending on what kind of games you're into. If you have a Sega CD and you're a fan of adventure games, absolutely get it because you can play things like Monkey Island with the mouse just like you would on a PC. And that is that's exciting for a console game. But if you're not interested in that type of gameplay, maybe there's not as much that the mouse is going to be useful for you.
I think if we're recommending that you have a 3-button pad around for a small handful of games, we have to also recommend that you have a mouse around for these 30 mouse games.
I would say only get the 3-button pad if you know you're after one of those games. So research which games you're after and if they have that particular issue. And then there's the activator.
Oh yeah, tell me about the activator.
It's the full body motion controller.
Is this the one that you strap to you?
Yeah, it's the one with the big octagon that you stand in.
The Octagon.
Yeah, it was the worst controller ever. I never got to play it, but got to watch somebody play it, and man, it was just awful. Like nothing they were trying to do was happening on the screen. It was
Oh no.
It was hilarious. This was like at a demonstration at a store too, and it was the rep, the like Sega or Activator rep or whoever it was like, I'm going to show you guys how amazing the Activator is, and it did nothing they wanted it to do. It was so great.
Oh no.
It was a Funko land.
Oh no.
So yeah.
Yeah, don't buy an Activator.
No, don't do that. I doubt you'd find a whole Activator anyway.
As far as original hardware setup, you want to go original hardware, you're looking at the system, which we kind of recommended Genesis 2 or 1.
Yep. It's probably about $50 there.
And then your choice of 6-button pads. You're probably looking at what, like $70 right there?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes the system will come with a 6-button pad.
True.
So you may be at around $50 total.
Yeah. So 50 to 70 here. And then you're going to be going into the wide world of video cables.
Actually, for Genesis, it's a surprisingly small world.
Okay.
Because...
well, by wide world, I meant wide world of pricing, I guess, is really what I meant.
Even that isn't too bad because the Genesis supports native RGB on every model. Even the Genesis 3 supports native RGB. I don't know that some of the other variants like the XI or stuff like that, but at least the first-party consoles and the Genesis 3 all support RGB natively. HD Retrovision offers a component cable for the system. Retro Gaming Cables offers component and RGB SCART cables for the system. So, and somebody makes it was Retro Gaming Cables makes an HDMI Rad2X cable that is native. You just plug it in, go straight to HDMI.
Those cables are so cool. They use a tiny like RetroTink chip and it's like a little mini converter.
Exactly. Or if you've got an older TV and you're just going to be plugging it into the older TV anyway, it's not too hard to find just a stereo composite cable for Genesis 2 or the mono composite cable for Genesis 1. Yeah. So now you've got options.
All of these options outside of just finding a regular composite cable, the retro gaming cables, the HD Retrovision component cables, the Rad2X, they're all in like the $50-$60 range.
Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit of money for them. I think I paid $20 for my RGB SCART cable for my Genesis, but I got it from eBay. I didn't buy it from one of them, and it works great. I have no issues with it.
So if you're wanting to hook it up to a modern TV, you're looking about a $50 bill, give or take.
Right. Unless you already
have exactly what you need.
If you already have a RetroTink or some other upscaler laying around,
then you have decent upscaler and you just grab an S-video cable for it, it'll probably get you pretty close.
I don't know if it supports S-video. It probably does, but I've never had an S-video cable for my Genesis. I always had composite. I went straight from composite up to RGB SCART.
I have S-video for my Saturn.
Yes, Saturn I know supports S-video.
I get you because I don't know, like upscaling composite is just it's muddy. So bad.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad. I don't know that I would recommend upscaling. Like if you're gonna upscale, just get one of the nicer cables. Just spend the money.
Yeah,
because it's gonna look bad, and you're gonna be upset that you spent. You save $50, but your game looks like garbage. Because people forget, like upscalers aren't miracle machines.
Right.
You know, they only have so much information to work with. You know, and they make it look a lot better. Yeah. I promise you take it out, it'll look way worse. But upscaling composite. Upscaling S-video goes okay.
Yeah.
In my experience. It's all right.
Right.
Let's talk hardware mods because there's not a whole shitload because it already supports so many video formats out of the box.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing it's mostly just region mods.
Right. So you had your region mod, which would let you switch PAL to NTSC. You could also switch between US PAL and US NTSC and Japanese NTSC. And then, of course, there were also mods that allowed the Genesis 1 to output stereo sound from its multi-AV port, which I looked at the wiring on that, and that looks very complicated, and I don't want to do that myself. But especially since there are cables now that have just that little breakaway that'll plug into the front headphone jack. Why go through all the extra effort? So, there weren't really nearly as many mods as you would see with other consoles of the era.
Let's fire through expansion hardware, because I think this is where people kind of end up getting in the weeds and not knowing what the hell to do, because that's where I am. I'm in the weeds and I don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah, so you got the power base converter, which just lets you play Master System games on the Genesis. That's all it does.
Right.
It only works on the Genesis 1, at least the US model does. There is a second model of, I don't remember what they call the power base converter in Europe, but it will let you play Master System games on a Genesis 2 or 3. But they will not play on a 32X. You cannot plug a power base converter into a 32X. It doesn't work.
Now, I will say, for power base converter, if you're in the States, chances are you probably don't have a lot of interest in Sega Master System.
Right.
But it's there if you want it.
Yeah.
You know. Sega CD and Sega 32X. How essential are these? Because I feel like the 32X is pretty non-essential.
True. Yeah.
But I feel like the Sega CD there's stuff there you might want to explore, and it's pretty open to piracy, so you can just burn a disc, as far as I know.
Yeah, I am a fan of the Sega CD. However, it was really maligned at the time for how many FMV games it had. It was pretty notorious for all of its god-awful garbage FMV games. But if you can weed past those and get to the actual good games on the system, it's pretty solid. It is harder to find, especially in good working shape these days, especially because a lot of people just didn't buy it at the time because, like the Turbo CD, it cost more than the Genesis did when it came out.
Yeah.
So it was expensive. A lot of people didn't buy it. And like you said, the 32X, there's just not a ton for it. I would say probably emulate that first just to see if there's anything you care about that much. There are some 32X CD games that require both to be plugged in.
It's pretty limited.
Yeah, it's very limited. I think it's 3 games, something like that.
As far as the Sega CD, there's a few models. I know you've got the Model 1 version for the original Genesis.
Yeah, the Model 1 and Model 2 Sega CD work on both the Model 1 and Model 2 Genesis.
Okay. Now, the Model 2 Sega CD is minimum $200.
Oof.
At a minimum $200.
Yeah, I don't know that I would recommend it for $200.
Okay.
That's what I've got is the Genesis or the Sega CD 2.
Yeah, there's also the Action System, which I think that's the little one that connects to the side.
I don't remember that.
Of the Genesis 2. You know, the one that goes on the side instead of under it.
Well, that's the Sega CD 2 is the one that went on the side.
Okay, well, then that one's about 120. You're probably going to end up paying 150 for it. So even that feels high.
Yeah. Yeah, the Sega CD 2 is the one that goes on the side. The Sega CD 1 is the one that has the slot tray at the bottom.
Okay, because I had seen Sega CD. Okay, all right, so never mind. The fucking Sega and their millions of different models.
There's two
model
models of Sega CD.
Well, but there's 3 SKUs.
Well, yeah, the third SKU is the one that came with a Genesis in the box.
All right, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, it looks like that's the Action System. That's the one that comes with the Genesis.
Now, you have more Sega CD experience than me. As far as, I think 32X is right out. It's expensive. It's problematic. Half of them don't work. There's not a lot of games for it. And unless you're just the world's biggest Calibri fan or Knuckles Chaotix, I can't imagine you're dying for a 32X.
If you're really looking for the best version of Blackthorn, you really want to get the 32X
There
version.
you go. The Sega CD...
So here's what I would say.
You're doubling how much you're spending out of the gate.
At this point, I would say don't buy the Sega CD, buy a flash cart, which really gets us into the next topic anyway. So flash carts for the Genesis have been around for a while. You can get a basic one for $50. However, some of the newer ones feature ODE, so they will play Sega CD games. They will emulate that optical drive. Those unfortunately started about $230, so you're looking at an investment close to the price of the Sega CD itself.
At that point, you might as well buy a Sega CD and a ream of CDs.
See, I disagree. I would say get the flash cart, because then you're also getting a flash cart, and you know that it doesn't need to be recapped soon. You know it's not going to have those extra hardware problems because it is a new product. So I would probably go with the flash cart over the Sega CD at this price point.
Yeah. So before we get into software recommendations, because that's going to vary person to person.
Sure.
You're wanting to get out the gate with, first of all, emulate. Please emulate.
Right,
buy a Genesis Mini 2, buy Genesis Classics Collections, play it on your Switch, play it on your Xbox, play it on your whatever, play it on Switch Online.
Yeah.
It's out there. If you really want to buy it, Genesis 1 or 2 is about $50. You're probably going to want a cable because you're probably going to want to hook it up to a modern TV, which is probably gonna be another $50. You're looking at about $100.
Yeah, assuming you don't already have some kind of upscaler or whatever.
And then really, Sega CD is such a tough conversation because honestly, it's basically a different system.
Yeah, it feels like a different console, essentially.
If you just want the Genesis, I say pick that stuff up, pick up a $50 flash cart. You're $150 out, and you've got a Genesis hooked up to your HD TV, and you're playing games, and it's great.
Exactly. And if you decide you want to go the Sega CD route later, you always can. It is an add-on. Yeah. You can either get the flash cart, you can get the console, whatever, and just keep on playing. And I still say the flash card over the console because even though you said you could just burn games on the Sega CD, I have to remind you again, it's 2022 and most people don't have a CD burner anymore.
Look, that's not my fault. Let's talk software.
Yeah.
If you want to go original cartridges, there's a lot of stuff available for not crazy expensive. My number one recommendation is pick up the Sega 6-pack.
Yeah. It's less than $10, or it's around $10.
You can get it for $10. Yeah. It's a half dozen games, and they're all pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just wrote up a giant ass list of games here. We're obviously not going to go through all of them, but I kind of priced them so that we could just grab a couple at each price point in case people want to see what is worth playing.
Right. In the $10 category, Sonic or the Sega 6-pack, 100%.
Right.
Pick that up.
Yeah.
Your Sonic 2s, your Mortal Kombats, if you're into that. If you're a sports person, you've got NBA Jam, which is classic.
Yep. NHL 94 is regularly considered the best NHL game ever, which is why I put it on here because I know nothing about sports ball, but I don't want Guy to hit me later. So I made sure NHL 94 is on there. X-Men is also great at that price point. All three Mortal Kombats are under $10, and those are regularly some of the most highly lauded games on the system.
Now, if you bought the 6-pack and then you bought two other games, you're out $30 and you got 8 games.
Yeah,
like that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a $30 great start for a retro console.
they're good games.
Yeah.
When you bumped up the $20 category, you end up with your Sonic 1 and 3, which I got to recommend. If you're buying a Genesis, you probably want to play Sonic.
Yeah, and you already have isn't one of the Sonics on the 6-pack?
Yeah, Sonic
1, I think.
I want to say it's Sonic 1. Yeah. I think it's Sonic 1.
Yeah, I want to say it is just because of the Sonic and Knuckles thing.
Because now I'm trying to remember all the games on the 6-pack. The first Golden Axe is on there. One of the Streets of Rages is on there. It might be the first one.
I can't remember
Sonic 1 is on there. There's a motorcycle racing game. Columns is on there. Yeah, which is really good.
Yeah.
In the $20 category, you got your Sonic 1 and 3s. Yep. You've got your Decap Attack, which is, I can't believe that game's still that cheap. What a weird what a weird fucking game. You've got Puyo. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is a Puyo game.
It's a good one. Too.
You've
second
got
X-Men game, which was very good. I was a big fan. Many of the Strike series, which for people who weren't around back then was a series of helicopter games from EA that are incredibly celebrated. They're just a ton of fun. They're not quite shmup and they're not quite like tactical strategy game. They're that nice little middle ground between the two.
Yeah. You also got Altered Beast in this category for some fucking reason. I don't know why you'd pay $20 for Altered Beast, but you may. You can. It is an option.
Yeah, sort of a million. It's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. In your $30 category, Sonic and Knuckles.
Yep.
So let's say, all right, you get the 6-pack, you buy Sonic 2 for $10, so you're out $20.
Yeah.
You get Sonic 3 for $20, that's $40.
Yeah.
And then you pick up Sonic and Knuckles, you're at $70 in games, and you've got the all the mainline Sonic games and Knuckles and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. And that's less than $70 actually. I rounded up a lot of these prices.
Yeah. Shining in the Darkness, Streets of Rage 2, which if you picked up the 6-pack, I think you have Streets of Rage 1, but Streets of Rage 2 for $30, you got to get it. It's so good. It's just so good.
You got Bomberman 94, Toe Jam and Earl, Revenge of Shinobi and Shinobi 3, which are both very well remembered.
I forget about the Shinobis. Yeah.
Comic Zone, soon to be a feetor film.
Everyone loves Comic Zone. I never loved Comic Zone.
I've never been a big fan.
Zombies
Ate My Neighbors, that's another one that people really like.
I also don't love that one.
It's not my thing, but I know people really like it, so I should mention it.
Honestly, I'm less enthused about the $30 category than I am about the $20 or $10 category. Really, honestly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about games that if you're buying a Genesis to play specifically these games and you insist on original hardware, maybe rethink your position.
Yeah, or immediately buy a flash cart.
Contra Hardcore, crazy expensive.
Yep.
Castlevania Bloodlines, crazy expensive. Crusader of Sinti, stupid expensive.
Yeah, that's ridiculously expensive.
All the Phantasy Stars and Shining Forces are pricey.
Yeah.
Beyond Oasis, Gunstar Heroes. Herzog's Vi is on the Sega Ages on Switch, and it's a fantastic version.
Nice.
Dune, Battle for Arrakis. These are all
good games. They're all good games.
Great Genesis games, heavy hitters in the category. They're expensive.
Yeah.
Just if you're buying a Genesis, then spend that money on a flash cart, or maybe think about whether you want to emulate or not.
Right.
Especially for stuff like Herzog's Vi. If you're here, like, man, that's what I want to fucking play. Then play the Sega Ages version. It's so good. It's so much better than the Genesis version.
But you should still play all of those games, by the way, at least through an emulator.
No, they're all great.
Yeah,
they're all great.
Except for Phantasy Star 3, you can skip that one.
Yeah, but Saturn says you can skip it. I started it and then got bored real fast.
Well, it's a bad game.
So yeah. I know Crusader of Sinti is kind of propped up lately. I see that one popping up more and more. I think that one's on the Genesis Mini too.
Yeah.
So you know, just putting it out there, you might think about if like for the cost of Crusader, like how much is Crusader Sinti? Like $200?
It was $500, I think.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was ridiculous when I was looking it up. I might be remembering wrong, but I want to say it was something like that.
The Mini 2 also has Herzog's Vi. I know the first Mini had Phantasy Star 2.
That's true.
I don't remember if 3 or 4 were on there.
Yeah, my bad. It was not $500. It's $700 for Crusader.
Oh my god! I don't see it in this list. So obviously you must have forgot it.
Oh.
But Musha is nowhere in any of this.
I don't know. I did completely forget that.
And you cannot forget Musha. Hold on, I'm gonna see how much Musha is.
Yeah, I'm
I
checking.
can't even find the damn thing. Musha is
About $350.
Oh my god! Lowest price $368.63. Fuck! Please emulate Musha.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
That's a great game. Yeah.
It's very good. Also on the Genesis Mini 2, I believe. Is this Musha? It's got the worst fucking... No, this isn't Musha. This is Truxton. Also a really good game.
Oh, true, yeah.
Truxton is fantastic. There's some good shmups on the Genesis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's some real... Just Musha alone is fantastic.
There's also
Truxton is a
Thunder
blast.
Force games.
You got Super Fantasy Zone, which is a pretty good fantasy zone. Oh, man, it's good.
Yeah. I don't think
It's
Super
a good
Fantasy Zone
system.
came out in North America the first time, though.
You got Lightning Force, which also Sega Ages version of Lightning Force, stellar. Please play that version. As far as like what we recommend, I don't know that I recommend buying a Genesis.
Yeah, it is cheap enough that if you happen to encounter one and you're just like, oh, I really want to have that, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I recommend going out of your way to get one if you don't already have one, just because of how easy and readily available emulation is for the console.
Yes, it's been so well preserved. It's been made so available across, and we didn't even talk about any of the older like Genesis and Sonic collections, and there's a fucking ton of them.
Because Sega's been releasing emulated Genesis games going back as far as the Dreamcast.
Yeah. They haven't gone anywhere, and also they've between them and their partnerships with them too, they've put out some of the better versions.
Absolutely,
like the Sega 3D Classics versions of Genesis games they're superior to the Genesis version. They just are.
Right.
It sucks that they're stuck on the 3DS, but they're fantastic. The Sega Ages version of all of these games are great versions, and so I just don't see much reason to really go back and buy, unless you're just nostalgic or you're a speed runner or you you just want to collect it, which is totally valid.
Absolutely.
But if you just want to play these games, man, emulation is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's readily available. All the games are easily emulatable. Plus, then you can also emulate Sega CD and 32X and Master System, and just get all of your Sega in one place. And you can pick up an 8BitDo M30 to play it with.
Which is an outstanding controller,
and it's $30 new. Or you can get one of those USB Genesis controllers from Retrobit if you want something that feels more original. Yeah. So,
I mean, you could basically take $100 bill, pick up Genesis Classics Collection, pick up the 8-bit Do M30, pick up some other random Sega Ages stuff, and just go to town playing these games in a superior format with I'm just going to say superior controller, and have a really good time.
How much extra would you have to throw in to also get pizza rolls?
Well, let's see. Accounting for inflation, you could probably get a family-sized bag of pizza rolls. I'm guessing they're about $10 right now, maybe $12.
Oh, good.
You know,
that's not too bad.
You know, that's all right. Yeah, get you some pizza rolls.
We've got a good night going on.
Get you Genesis Classics. Get you your 2-liter of Diet Shasta.
No, we're gonna get Kool-Aid this time. Diet Shasta's getting too expensive. We're just gonna get some Kool-Aid.
Fucking inflation! This Diet Shasta's through the roof.
We're gonna get some black cherry Kool-Aid.
Oh man, the Genesis is a wonderful system that I've had the pleasure of exploring mostly as an adult when I can appreciate a lot of what it's doing. And it's just great. You should check it out. You should download. If you have a Switch, get some Sega Ages games. They go on sale all the time for like $2. Like I was playing Virtual Racing. I was addicted to Virtual Racing for like 5 days.
Was it the arcade
on my
version
Switch.
or the Genesis version?
I don't know which version because I've not played either. I think it's the arcade version.
Probably, yeah.
But man, it's just I don't give a shit about the game, but the Sega Ages version makes it so compelling.
The Genesis version of Virtual Racing is so impressive for the hardware, but I still just do not care for the game. So
yeah,
it's a very interesting technical feat, but
yeah. Anyway, go play some Genesis. There's a lot of good Genesis.
A lot of blast processing for you to enjoy out there.
Yeah. You know where there is zero blast processing?
Where is that, Justin?
Is our Patreon at patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where we can't afford things like blast processing because
we're too busy saving up for Crusader of Senti.
Yeah, we got to buy our $700 copy of Crusader of Senti. It's almost as good as Link to the Past. Almost.
It's not quite almost. I wouldn't go that far.
It's 40% as good as Link to the Past.
It's approaching the quality of Link to the Past.
It's like an okay game was showed a picture of Link to the Past.
It is a good game, though. If you don't compare it to Link to the Past, it's an excellent game.
But you can also get Talking Wizards. You can get our new show Read Along, where we read old magazines, and that's the thing that we do. Right. And you can pay us money for it if you want to.
We're going to do it whether you pay us money or not. But if you pay us money, you get to listen to us read old magazines.
That sounded aggressive. We're doing it whether you pay us or not. We're going to fucking do it. Also, I wasn't on the last episode of Read Along because I was very sick.
You were dying.
So if you ever want to know what a podcast sounds like, sans me, then there is one out there. You know,
it was a Fatal Frame or Trails in the Sky. You were not there. One of those.
No, I was there for both of them.
There's one that you were not there, I believe.
No, I was there for both of them.
Okay.
I just didn't say anything.
You were just basically silent.
I still hosted it.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking there was one episode that you actually legit couldn't make it to. But I
think in our 270 something episodes, 370. Well, how many?
377 episodes.
We've done 377 of these.
I know.
Holy shit! I keep thinking it's 277.
Yep, right.
We're not an extreme length away from episode 500.
I know.
Oh my God. Anyway, we want to thank the following patrons for their kind contributions, starting with Chris Forbes.
And a sphincter says what?
David Nethery.
You didn't say what?
I didn't say.
STG the Mr. Guy.
The New Craft.
Chris Hickson.
Amarlian.
Retronauts does adventure game episodes.
Oh, yeah? Michael Castro.
And Millie's Homemade Ice Cream is the best ever.
Are all the real human names that we want to say to you in thanks of the things that they do for us.
Hey Justin.
What?
You said it. You said it.
Anyway, that's the show. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.